28 months down, yeah, the industry's been bruised, but we're not here to fold, we're here to refuse. While others pause, we built the plays, now we're leading the charge in a brand new phase. You feel that tension, that's the pressure to grow. Hiring's messy, turnovers high and budgets low, but we don't panic, we adapt. We sharpen the edge and reload the map. This is the staffing playbook, strategy on tap. Steven brings the grit, G-Money brings the slap. Forget the fluff, forget the spin. We give you plays that actually win. From the break room floor to the boardroom seat, we've walked the walk, now we bring the heat. CDLs, forklifts, line leads, and execs. We place the best and fix the wrecks. Insight, hustle, leadership bold. No safe takes, just the truth told cold. Wanna scale your team, wanna close that gap? We got the data, the story, and the roadmap. So turn it up, lock it in. This is more than a podcast, it's a win. This is the staffing playbook. Let's get to work, it starts right now.
Welcome back to the Staffing Playbook, part 3 of our 3-week tell-all series behind the curtain of how HR really thinks about staffing agencies. I'm your host, Stephen Farrell, and I'm joined by my co-host,
Genevieve Bourgeois. How are you?
I'm good. I am so excited for this episode. We had a great episode with MSP and VMS and what they think about staffing agencies. Then we had Megan and Shane, 2 HR leaders, talk about their relationship with staffing agencies. And what better way to wrap up the series than 2 of my friends, Angie and Gail. Welcome to the podcast, Angie and Gail.
Thank you.
Thanks, Stephen.
So I'm going to give Angie and Gail a brief introduction before we get started. I'll start with you, Angie. Angie is a senior HR leader with over 20 years in HR leadership, specializing in aligning people and culture with strategies and business goals. She's led HR functions in manufacturing, technology, and high-growth environments. She's passionate about creating purpose-driven teams and partnerships that last. Did I miss anything there, Angie?
Nope, that sounds great.
Awesome. And Gail here, she brings deep experience in HR and talent acquisition leadership, including workforce planning, organizational development, and talent operations. She's helped companies scale effectively while improving retention and compliance, often in collaboration with trusted staffing partners. Did I miss anything there, Gail?
Not at all.
All right.
The 2 of you have just impressive backgrounds. Now I'm verklempt. I'm a little nervous.
I'll tell you, these 2 are perfect. They've placed it, bought it, fixed it, and fired it. They are just the perfect guides for behind the curtain to tell all. So over the next 45 minutes, we're going to dig into the good, the bad, and the ugly of working with staffing firms from an HR perspective. We're going to talk about outreach tactics that earn an instant delete from you sales reps that are out there, what HR leaders actually want from a staffing firm, communication breakdowns, how to fix them, lessons from the worst and the best agency partnerships, and lastly, what agencies must do to stay relevant in 2025 and beyond. So who's ready to hear the unfiltered verdict? Let's pull back the curtain. Let's have some fun today. Full transparency is starting this off. I have worked with both Angie and Gail through multiple companies. I have been a staffing provider for them. Presently, I'm not a staffing provider for Angie. I don't know why, Angie. We're going to figure this out today.
What did he do?
Oh, there's a lot of those stories.
And I'm here for that.
All right. So we're just going to jump right into it. We're going to have some fun. So we're going to start with an icebreaker question that I asked our last guests in part 2. And we'll start with you, Gail. In one sentence, what's the first word that comes to mind when you hear staffing agency?
So, support, maybe.
Support, maybe.
Yes.
All right. I'm gonna peel that back in a little bit here.
No, I saw your hesitation. I was like, uh-oh.
Yeah. Let's get ready for this. Buckle up, everybody. Angie, in one sentence, what's the first word that comes to mind when you hear staffing agency? And don't say Steve.
I was going to say No. I would say organized chaos.
Organized chaos.
Ooh.
Is that what you said? Organized chaos?
It's chaos. Yes.
Wow, I was not expecting that. Okay, so break it down. Angie, what is organized? What does that mean? Organized chaos.
So when you work with the staffing agency, right? They come in. They've been in other industries. They've worked. I'm thinking in manufacturing. They've worked in other plants. They've staffed other production plants, and so they're very organized with what they have. Sometimes, right? However, it can be very chaotic. Making sure that they're following the same processes that we have, the same background check, the same drug screen test. Are their new hires getting our policies and procedures? How are they onboarded? So just the chaos, it can be very, very overwhelming, but it can be organized because they bring an organization to help for the most part. But yeah, so I would say an organized chaos. It's very chaotic. And depending on the agency, I wouldn't even say necessarily the agency, but just those individuals that you work with, that chaos can last the entire relationship, or it can be short-lived chaos.
Well, and Angie, you've been over facilities with thousands of employees, so it does get chaotic, but and no matter what you do. But yeah, I like the way you framed it. Organized chaos. If it's not organized, then it's just chaos, and that's not a good recipe.
No.
Okay, Gail, I want to go back to you on support, maybe.
Support, maybe. So I've had experience with agencies on both sides of the coin, right? It is a partnership. I view it as a partnership with the agency, and I have very high expectations. My expectations are, all in, full partnership. That means I'm going to treat you like you are potentially one of my employees on the team, right? I want that same investment in return. If I don't get that, then it reflects in the unmet expectations that I've laid out for that assignment or those placings.
I can attest, Gail does have very high expectations.
As
not a
she
bad
should,
thing.
as we
She
all should. And this is where we need to make sure that we're being better partners, especially like on the staffing side, like for any clients or even for our candidates, we need to make sure that the processes are all there, making sure that we're trying to have as much organization as possible and streamline everything, but also communicating and actually being a good, valuable partner, not just any partner. Because like Angie said, like, yeah, you worked with a bunch of other places. Not all places are the same. It could be the same industry. Doesn't mean it's the same business model. Doesn't mean you all have the same processes. So those are fabulous points.
Yeah, both of you, Angie and Gail, high expectations. Probably the highest you'll ever see in an HR leader, which I've learned a lot from both of you. So thank you. All right. We're jumping. We're going to jump into the bad and the ugly for a few minutes. Generally speaking, looking at staffing agencies as a whole, not just individual agencies, but the industry itself that you both have interacted with for many years. Do you think staffing agencies act like a commodity, very transactional, or as a strategic workforce partner overall as an industry? We'll start with you, Angie.
So I think I think it depends. Like I've worked with agencies that it is just transactional. They get their foot in the door. We explain our expectations up front. You're part, like Gail said, you're part of the team. You're coming to our morning meetings. You're expected to, be a part of our team. And if they're not bought in, if they're not part of the team, it seems very, very transactional. However, I've worked and Gail's worked. In fact, I have a picture of Gail and I when we had a team building and we worked together. And our team building activity included our staffing agency. They were part of the HR team. It was just them. It wasn't, they were invested. They wanted the best for the business, they wanted the best for the employees, and they wanted to support us as HR. So I think it depends on the agency. I mean, and who you have as the on-sites, right? Those site individuals have to be bought in. They have to understand what's your vision, what's your goals, what are your expectations from them as a staffing agency and as part of the HR team, because in all honesty, they are part of the HR team.
Yeah. That's a great point, Angie. It depends on the agency. Many treat it as a transaction, and they're really just becoming a commodity in that way. But the fact that you want to invite the agency to your team building, HR activities, that really separates most agencies. And you're right about the on-site. The on-site's almost an extension of the HR team. Gail, how about you? Generally speaking, agencies, commodity, or strategic workforce partner?
So the best success comes if they're a strategic workforce partner. Angie spoke a lot about the on-site, but even if they're working out of an office, that strategic partnership is still super important, because at the end of the day, there's two companies involved, right? The one you're working for and the agency that is supporting your company. There's two reputations at stake. So at the end of the day, that partnership and alignment needs to be consistent in order to benefit both sides of that relationship.
Yeah.
Well said.
Yeah, well
both
said.
of you, well said.
Two reputations at stake. You don't hear that very often, but it's 100% accurate.
Because I'm on the marketing side of things, and brand reputation is everything. I guess we'll go dive into that. Stay tuned in just a second. Stephen, take it away.
All right. Next question. We're going to start with you, Gail. Walk us through the last time you had to fire a staffing supplier and what triggered that decision.
So fortunately, I haven't had to fire a staffing supplier.
Ooh. So maybe tell us what would cause you to fire a staffing provider, not your current one, by the way.
Right. Well, just with what we've been discussing, right? Not meeting the expectations of the follow through on assignments, or being disconnected from the team, from myself, not investing the efforts that I expect as part of the agreement. So it's I haven't had to do any of that, thanks but no thanks relationship. I've been on a team where we've had some agencies, asked not to return, but I myself wasn't in charge at that time.
Yeah.
So again, it's just about being that committed partner for the organization. At the end of the day, I want the candidate experience also to be fantastic, right? It's not just about placing a person in a role. It's about representing the company that you're supporting, for that employee to be excited, to be bought into the new assignment, to be supported along the way if it's a temporary assignment, moving into a full-time position, regardless of the situation. The candidate experience at the end of that placement, should be 100%, satisfactory.
Yeah, I hope those of you tuning in go back and rewind what Gail just said. Not meeting expectations, being disconnected, not being a committed partner, failing on the candidate experience. Those 3 or 4 things, those are all a doozy. That would kick any agency out.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Gail.
Absolutely. I've got more follow-up questions, but I want to hear Angie's, I need
go,
to hear
Angie.
your answer now.
Hey, yes. So unfortunately, I have been part of letting an agency go, and it can be challenging. It's hard because I think both sides, including your team, your HR team, want this to be successful, to be a successful partnership. Some of the things, I talked about it in my first answer. When they sell you, or when they come and talk to you, this agency comes and talks to you about all the things that they can do, how they can fill your job so quickly, right? That is important, right? But going back to what Gail said, it's all about the candidate experience. One thing for me that was a trigger for this was communication, right? Communication not only to me as the HR manager and my team, but also to their employees. I think of different experiences where they had a location outside of our plant to where they could go and pick up their check, or if they had any questions, but that location moved, right? But they didn't communicate that to anybody. So we have all of their employees calling us, asking us questions like, where can I pick up my pay stub? Where can I find this information? And then they're nowhere to be found. We can't locate them. We can't contact them. They just won't respond. That's one thing that is critical to me. If once they're hired, you shouldn't just ghost them, right? You need to make sure that they have the support, not only from you on site, but also after hours. If they have questions and different things, you need to be that support. One thing too, that's also really crucial to me, and Gail, this is, we've worked together, is know your people, like really know and understand them. One thing that I really struggled with this agency is, we had our startup meeting every morning, and it was crucial because even though it was early, it was crucial because we talked about what happened within the last 24 hours. What issues did we have? What concerns did we have? What do we need to follow up on? What injuries did we have? And it could be injuries from the staffing agency to our own employees, right? So just that communication. But we had someone who, when in a production environment, they would show up in a suit every single day, which is fine. That's great. But know your audience and know your part.
With the agency partner showed up in a suit?
Yes. And then they would go walk the line, which I'm all about. I love my earrings, my all that, right? But there's a time and a place for it. And one thing I think that is so important, not just in staffing agencies, but in HR alone, you have to be approachable. You have to be someone that an employee feels comfortable coming up and asking, hey, do you know when our next pay period is? Or do you know how I can get my pay stub? Just general questions. Just know your audience and know the expectations of not only your employees that you're bringing on, but also the team that you work with, your HR team. Know what their expectations are. Know what's important to them. Understand that, yes, this morning meeting is critical. It's the start of every day, and it's just making sure that we're organized and that we're all on the same page. And if you miss that, it's a critical piece.
I think the suit guy may have gave you a bigger markup than was not me.
But so
he must have got a good markup out of you.
I don't know, but so I do have a follow-up question. And so especially when it comes to all of this, when it comes to working with another agency or staffing firm, do you have I don't know, a playbook of what are your pre-screening questions, or what are the things that you look for, like the top 3 items, because you'd want to work with the right partner, not just any partner, right? So what would be the top 3, Gail? We'll start with you.
So I had a fantastic experience with an agency at a previous company that was new to the industry, new to the organization that we were bringing in. And what impressed me the most was, number one, they wanted to understand the business. They wanted to understand our policies. They wanted to understand the types of employees that we needed, so that they could align their own policy playbook, their own onboarding structure to mimic our organizations. They wanted the transition for that candidate experience to be seamless, so that it felt to the candidate that it was one company. It wasn't two companies working together. That was the most impressive. So their engagement, their understanding of how is this going to impact the person that we're looking for to place within the organization. Because at the end of the day, they were concerned about making sure they hired not just a body, but a person that could build a career within that organization that they were staffing for.
Yeah.
And that's how staffing, like, that's how we can change people's lives, by really putting the right candidate with the right company and helping them build the right career. And that's why I'm in staffing. I just love people. All right, Angie, what would be your top three?
My top three would be, very similar to Gail, like understand the business, right? How can you understand, or how can you recruit for something you don't understand? And some of the good experiences that I have had is when the agency said, will ask, give me a tour of your facility. Show me what you guys do in and out. What am I going to be recruiting for? Helping them understand that. And then also making sure that we're aligned. Like, I worked with one agency that, similar to what Gail said, they showed him, like, okay, this is your career path. Even though, you're with an employment agency, a staffing agency, this is what your future could look like, right? In 90 days, we'll hire you on to this full-time employment, right, with this company, and how that can kind of work. And then helping them understand also what it means to be not just like a production associate, right, or a warehouse associate, what it means to be a leader, what it means to be a line lead, all that kind of stuff, just solely engaged in helping the employee understand that this is just a stepping stone and you can go on to great things. One thing, Gail, an admin that Gail and I worked with in HR, he started out as a production associate on the floor through a staffing agency. And now he's probably one of the better HR admins that I've ever worked with. Just so knowledgeable, but he was able to have a good relationship with his staffing agency and just succeed. And it's amazing to see how far he's come.
I think I know that guy that you're talking about. I love that story.
I'm just like, I'm like, oh, don't make me cry. Like, that's just adorable. Sorry. No, but like, that's the real passion of why we do what we do on a daily basis, because people matter. So thank you. All right, Stephen.
Before we get into too much good, I want to get into more bad and ugly. I've got a good one. We'll start with you, Angie.
Okay.
So let's put our sales hats on. These are sales reps coming from agencies, knocking on your door, bombarding you with your inbox, voicemails, all of that, right? So describe the last outreach attempt that made you instantly hit the delete button, ignore the message, hang up, escort them out to security. What was it that turned you off?
Tell me it was Stephen's name. No. Sorry. All right, go on.
It could have been.
I get an email or a call or, even just a LinkedIn message saying that they know and understand what we're going through. I have no idea, right? And never even had a conversation. Like, you don't even know what I look like. Just you have no idea. You just found my name and on our website somehow, right? Or whatever. Thinking that they know more is one of the most infuriating things, because I feel like if you were to build upon that relationship, in the back of my mind, I always am thinking they have a different agenda. Like, they have to be the smartest person in the room, which I don't work that way, and my team doesn't work that way. Like, you have to work together. You have to work off of each other, and we work together as a team, not as everything, what we need, and I'm here to save you and your company. That really bothers me.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to tell a funny story, but I'll maybe save it for later. How I lost Angie as a client and had to get her back. So I'm trying to remember what I did to get her to take my call.
Changed your name.
Changed my name.
I know what you did, so I'm ready to tell whatever.
All right.
I need to hear all of these stories. Okay.
Oh, there's hundreds. It's awesome. Okay, Gail, how about you? What the last attempt that made you just kind of turned you off? What happened exactly?
Similar to Angie, there's been attempts to reach out through email, text, and LinkedIn, but then showing up at the door uninvited and expecting to have time with me is kind of irritating. It feels like a sales pitch, which, we're busy. We don't have time for that. The other thing is picking up the phone, not knowing that it's a staffing agency, and then they give their spiel and they can't even pronounce the company's name correctly. So that's an immediate turn off. So, I feel like once we have a partnership that's created and that's working really well, I've got the support I need. I don't necessarily need to look at other people to, fill a void that's not there. So I appreciate the fact that they're offering a service, but I don't need the service at the time that they're reaching out. So I prefer not to have that unsolicited attention. There's enough. I think we've created enough partners within the industry, to be able to, if we need additional help, to reach out and gain that support. So
okay, I'm going to go on a tangent for a minute because of what you just shared. There's this new term being thrown around the industry for sales reps, and that is we want to be on our ideal customers' day one list, meaning the moment, Gail, you say, okay, things have been going well, I don't have a need, and then one day you wake up and you're like, they're not going well, I need to make a change with my agency partners or add another one, and you automatically have one or two agency names on your mind that you're likely going to reach out to. So that's what the industry is saying. Hey, get on their day one list, right? Build a good relationship, become friends, get to know their business. Don't be pitching them every day. If they have a need, they will call you at some point if you have a good relationship. I want to ask both of you, is that statement true? Do you have a day one list in your head where if you did need to make a change, you have one or two agencies you would reach out to automatically?
I would, yes.
Yeah. Whoa, you guys heard it here first. First time ever. The day one list exists. So you better get on that list.
We could do a whole episode just on that. All right,
Yeah.
Stephen, before we derail, back to the ugly.
Back to the ugly. Okay, finish the sentence. We'll start with you, Angie.
Okay.
If agencies did blank consistently, 80% of my headaches would disappear.
Onboarding.
Oh, that's so bad. Oh no.
Oh no, I could see that
should
one
be
being
that should be the one you get right every time.
Yeah. All right.
Onboarding.
Gail?
I would say follow up.
Follow up. Okay. In what regards? Is there a certain part of like the process or you would really appreciate the follow up?
I would appreciate the follow up as far as that, again, having that partnership. It's not just about washing your hands as soon as the assignment's made, right? There's a person at stake, and we want to make sure that that person's getting the support that they need, and the relationship's working well. So there's an ongoing partnership beyond just the placing of the person. So following up to make sure that candidate, that person, that employee is is doing well. If not doing well, where do they need to look, or do things differently? You know, the attributes that makes that a good candidate, you know, so that they can target other great candidates, you know, that meet our needs. Just that ongoing follow-up.
Yeah, thank you for the clarification.
Mm-hmm.
And Angie, what about onboarding?
So that probably the consistency with onboarding of knowing where they're going to be placed. Do they have all of their background, drug test, all of that done? Sometimes, you know, especially when you have a larger volume of candidates coming in, that can get convoluted very quickly. If the staffing agency is not organized, right, it can become very chaotic. Kind of going back to what the first two words were, organized chaos. Can cause a big headache, right, for everyone involved. So just making sure that if they were consistent in, okay, if they had like a checklist, day one, or this is what we do first, second, third, and just kind of have the same checklist that the HR team has. Just making sure they're always following the steps, the placement is the same, even, you know, onboarding as far as when a conversion happens, when they're going full time. What is that process? Making sure that it's followed to exactness every single time, right? It can be, I know there's a lot of gray area in HR and in staffing in general, but to me, onboarding can be very black and white, and it just needs to be black and white.
Yeah, I can appreciate what you shared about having the same checklist as the company you're staffing for. You'd want to have an alignment meeting with them to see exactly how they do it. Ask them what's working out of this process, if all of it's working, or what are parts that are not working. Maybe we can, collaborate on that portion. But let's make sure we're doing it the exact same way you are, so there's right. The expectations are the same, and the candidate has a good experience. All right. So let's just say you bring on a new agency and you've got a recruiter or account manager that you're meeting with. How should they prep before the first intake call to earn your trust from the very beginning? Gail, you want to go?
Sure. So, couple of things. I think understanding the business itself so that we can have a good conversation. So they need to do their homework for the business. And then, sharing their metrics, sharing their success rates, sharing their pain points, being open and transparent about what they do well, where they have opportunity, so that if they come up, on the short end, that it's not, a surprise. So it's just, being transparent, vulnerable. They don't know everything, admitting to that. So that's what I look for.
Love that.
I just took so many notes, and I've already had to flip over my paper.
Well, the whole vulnerability piece of they just sold you a bag of goods, and then it's like, okay, but let's be realistic here. Here's where we might struggle for this, specific shift or role. You'd want to know that. The agencies aren't perfect. Some are close, but most aren't.
Well, at the end of the day, right? We've got to answer to the business, and if I can work together in partnership with the agency, if they're transparent with me, I can be better prepared to then, have an answer for the business. It's about being on the same page, having that partnership, working together to find the solution.
That's great. Angie, how about you?
Yeah, so some of my answers are very similar to Gail's. Understanding the business, understanding, I think people without working there can understand kind of the challenges that you have faced as the business, especially if you're in a smaller community. Going back to what Gail said early on, is reputation is key, right? If they understand what the reputation is and how they can help turn it around. We talked about, especially in a smaller community, reputation is key. It's critical. If you have a bad reputation, you're just going to have an open door, right? Where people come in and out all the time, but how they can help you, how they can partner with you. And one thing I think that's really, really important and something that gains my trust right away is having a recruiter there that knows and understands what they're doing. When a staffing agency brings a recruiter that's like, yeah, I've heard of some of the things that we've done in the past, but they've never done it, I'm instantly like, I don't have time to train you. I'm too busy. That's why I'm here. Like, making sure that they know what they're doing, right? If we were to sign with them, if we were to say, okay, let's go, I don't want to hold hands. Like, let's go, let's get going, right?
Yeah.
And so for that person, whoever the on-site is, the recruiter, that the staff that they have is going to be able to support us and be able to know what to do and just hit the ground running.
So important.
Super, super important.
All right, I want to hit on the good when it comes to agencies reaching out, trying to earn your business. Going back to that day one list, how did they get on that day one list? I meet with a lot of people in the industry, and I hear all the same things. They're just like, we can't find new business. We can't get into the building of established business because business is down. The agencies they have are doing a good enough job. And to Gail's point, it's like, we're fine. We don't need anything else, anything more. It's like everything's working the way it's supposed to. So thanks, see you in a year. And so sales reps are pulling their hair out. They're having all this anxiety because they're supposed to hit these numbers, and they're just forgetting about the whole relationship building part, and that takes time. And so this question might be a two-part question, but when an unfamiliar sales rep cold calls you, Angie and Gail, or maybe cold pops in, what two signals tell you they've actually done their homework and deserve maybe 5 minutes of more of your time? Who wants to start?
I will.
Go ahead.
So one thing that would really help, and I know that they've done their homework, is if they say, hey, Gail sent me. I work with Gail. I know her. Or if they do their homework to know who I've worked well with in the past, and who I'm still connected with, and just say, hey, or if they have Gail call me and say, hey, so-and-so's going to stop by, 100% I will drop everything and be like, okay, well, if Gail says you're good, I'm listening, because she has high expectations. She's dang good at her job. And if she says you're okay, then you're okay. Let's do this.
So even if you're happy, if someone's is part of your network in one way or another, or gets a referral from someone from your network, whether you're going to work with them or not, you're going to talk to them.
100%.
That's really good. That is a golden nugget.
I know. I've got to highlight that.
I just wrote that down.
Oh, I write everything down, but that's getting highlighted.
Gail, how about you?
I was going to say, let me throw a little bit of caution there, because I've actually had agencies reach out and say, oh, I've worked with your corporate office in the past, and I don't think that person's there anymore. But, so they try to name drop with in an effort to get that business. So caution to the wind there. Yeah, we have a strong network, Angie and I and Steph, and we trust each other. We've worked on the same team. So definitely echo Angie's comments there. In all honesty, that cold approach, out of the blue, I'd have to be in a pretty desperate state to listen or receive that unsolicited sales pitch. But
yeah,
to me, it's got to be either coming from a known source, as a referral with a heads up from that person, or I'm not one to do a cold intake.
And there's a lot of HR leaders like you out there that we run into every day. It's like, I don't care who I have a job to do, and you don't fit into my schedule today or this month. I'm sorry.
Well,
right?
I mean, I've said this before and I'll say it again, but time is the most valuable thing that we have to offer. So when it does come to all of those unsolicited calls or drop-ins or visits, I completely get it. So it's like if you go and you get the actual call from a known source, like Angie's like, "Hey Gail, I'm referring Steven. I've worked with him. Watch out. He may
Watch
drop
out.
off donuts." I don't know. I just had to make up something. But you know what I mean? Like having something like that versus just the cold call directly. Because this way at least you're like, okay, I know I have a little bit of time. Okay, great. No, I can do this day rather than just a random drop in. And like you said, when people expect your time, when they just
Yeah.
show up.
Yep.
Angie would say, "Watch out." Okay, this one's for. I'm going to start this one with Angie, and I think this is going to be really good for both of you. This is where we're getting into the good. So, tell us a moment when a staffing partner made you look like a rock star internally, and what was it that they did specifically to make you look like a rock star?
Okay, so when I worked at a production plant, we had a really good relationship with the staffing agency that we had there, and we had a surprise visit from our leadership staff from out of state. Right, they would come. We knew they were in town, but sometimes we didn't know if they were coming to the facility or not. And this particular day, I got notification that morning, and then they were going to be there in a few hours. So going to this agency, this on-site leader, and letting them know, okay, hey, we have a higher turnover than most of the plants around us. Why is that, right? We know what we have as far as our information. What can you provide me? What can you give me to help me and so I can put this presentation together to look good? And this individual was so organized. They were able to provide all the information as far as this is the turnover, this is why they're leaving, the tenure, is it within the first 30 days, first 90 days, 3 to 6 months, all of that stuff. And we actually used, after I presented that to the VP, they actually used that presentation as the kind of like the go-to for all of the plants. So they
Really?
Yeah, it was awesome. And so now then they went to all of the Utah facilities, and they said, okay, this is something that get with Angie, get with the staffing agency, use this presentation, and I want the same information. And so this individual, without even knowing, made me look really good and made me feel really good and really confident in that, okay, we're going in the right direction, and we know what our pain points are. We know where we need to succeed, and we are succeeding, right? Because we do know the information that we need. If you don't have that knowledge, you cannot move forward. And so making sure that they had that, and just at a moment's notice was just something I am super thankful for, and just really appreciative.
That's such a cool story. And talk about a true partnership instead of a
That's
commodity.
Going above and beyond, and I love that.
Being prepared always. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Angie, thank you. Gail, how about you?
Yeah, so going back to the agency that I worked with that was new to the industry, gaining business, they weren't even located in the state of Utah. They were, on the East Coast. So we connected multiple times to get them, established within the organization. And, from day one, just the collaboration and the partnership that we formed together to make sure that, we could bring them into the organization was a super challenging situation, but we worked together to do so. Once they were established within the organization, there was a meeting, I guess, with the upper senior leadership team that from both sides of the organization, where there was acknowledgement made, back to me for, establishing the guidelines and the partnership, and, having a successful onboarding of that agency. So, just a shout out to acknowledge, the hard work that went together to make sure that both businesses were successful in meeting the expectation of the company. It was a great acknowledgement to receive.
Because you were taking a chance on them, and
Yes.
so they leaned into that and really established that team effort. When it sounds like they just went above and beyond to really just integrate within your operations, which is hard to do, especially if you're out of state.
Yeah, and really it was acknowledged by the agency that they had a lot at stake, and I reiterated, well, so do we, right? Because you haven't been here. That I trust you at my level, but the rest of the organization hasn't been able to see that yet. So there's risk on both sides. So I'm invested just as much as you are, and we're going to work together to make sure we have success at the end.
Yeah. Beautiful. Now, we only have 5 more minutes with Gail, and then we're going to try to hold Angie hostage for a few more minutes.
Okay.
Maybe.
If we can, Angie. Well, let's kind of wrap it up with a rapid fire. So this will be 1 sentence answers. We'll start with you, Angie. If you could bottle one element of your best agency relationship and give it to every other agency, what would it be?
One element. Communication.
Ooh, common theme in this 3-part series, communication.
Mm-hmm.
Gail?
Commitment.
Oh, first time I heard that one.
Yeah, seriously, I was like, oh, okay.
I love that. All right. When it comes to communication from the agency, 30-second voicemail or 200-word email? Angie?
30-second voicemail.
Voicemail? Gail?
Voicemail.
Okay. Voicemail. Weekly scorecard or quarterly business review?
Weekly scorecard.
Okay. Gail?
I know it's more than one word, but I think it depends. Quarterly business review, if the organization's established. Scorecard, if there's issues.
Got it.
Okay.
That makes sense. A sales rep reaching out to you. Did a message on LinkedIn before or after they call you?
Is neither an option?
Yeah. Is that what Gail's going to say too?
Yeah.
So a sales rep calls you, they meet you for 5 minutes, right? And then they message you on LinkedIn. Would you say the message should come before or after that phone call?
The message should come before. Yeah.
Before. Okay. Got it. Love it. Text, email, or phone call for urgent issues? Angie?
Phone call.
Phone call. Gail?
Phone call. If I don't answer, then send me a text.
Yep.
Got it.
Mhm.
Okay. And this is my favorite question. In 30 seconds, give one commandment every staffing firm must follow in 2025. And you have to start it with thou shalt. Who wants to go first?
I will.
Gail?
Thou shalt invest in the partnership, because at the end of the day, it's about the candidate experience and the reputation of both companies.
Beautiful. Angie?
Thou shalt be immersed in the business to understand how to help grow it and support it.
Wonderful. All right. Well, I'm still going to try to hold Angie here hostage for a couple minutes,
Okay.
but if she can't. But Genevieve, do you want to wrap us up?
Okay, so just we're gonna go kind of through a couple of things. I've taken so many notes. So all right, kind of just play by play when it comes to everything that you've shared with us today. Communication, right? Being organized, being transparent, making sure that we are following up. But here's the biggest thing, the candidate experience is something that the two of you brought on and just spoke about the most, and how important that really is. So making sure that you are organized and that your partners are invested and aligned with your business goals. Did I miss anything high level?
No, great.
I don't think so.
All right.
Well, Gail, Angie, it's been such a treat. What a better way there's no better way than wrapping up this 3-part series with the two of you, because you guys have been in high volume production environments for a large part of your career. You worked with multiple staffing agencies. And so I think our audience has learned quite a bit today from each of you. So can't thank you enough. We hope to have you back on at a future date if you'll allow. We'll bring you on weekly if you wanted to.
No, seriously, thank you both. We love everything that you shared with us.
Yep. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. And thank you, Gail. Angie,
Yep.
you got a minute?
I do. Yes.
Okay, we're gonna have some fun here. We're gonna do behind the scenes after the podcast with Angie here for a minute. So Angie and I, we might be telling on myself here, but her and I have worked together for many, many years, and we didn't always start off on the wrong foot, and I got in trouble a few times, and her and I didn't even work for like a year together because I was a jerk. But I have to say, I learned so much from you, and I'm curious, when it comes to working with agencies, your experience working with me, if you go back, just hindsight's 2020, what do you think I could have done better as a staffing partner to truly support you in your business over the years that we've worked together?
I want to preface this with, after that, year or so that we struggled, right?
Yeah.
I said this earlier before the podcast started. Now I feel like, we have the opportunity to work together again. And my perception, my respect for you changed 100%. And now you're probably one of my close contacts, as far as not only personal friends, but also work, right? You're one that I like, to be honest, you're one of my day one people, right? That I for a lot of things. But I think some of the things that we struggled with was maybe sometimes I didn't feel heard, right? Like I didn't feel I was in the thick of things. Things were crazy, right? And I felt like I knew because it wasn't just you, and I felt like I knew what my issues were, and you knew what the issues were and how we could overcome them. And I wanted to tell you what the issues were, and I wanted you just to believe me, right? Like, these are what my issues are, and you're gonna fix my issues, right? Rather than, okay, but I know these are your issues. These are some of the things that I think that we can do, right? So I think just humility on both ends, if that makes sense, and just knowing and listening to one another, and knowing that it's okay to not know the answer to everything, right? And I'm talking about myself. Like, that's one thing as well. That's one thing I had to learn is, okay, I may think I know the answer, but I don't know everything. I mean, I always tell my husband, I'm like, don't you think if I were wrong, I would know
it? Okay, so I feel the same way. It was communication. I mean, we've said that a lot already today, how important communication is. And I know I certainly failed at communication many times working with you. And sometimes I was a really good listener, and other times I had my own objective. And not that I realized I had my own objective, but I did. And so, I wasn't listening, and that's where I failed. And it was a hard lesson.
Yeah, it was hard, but I'm glad we're where we're at now.
Yeah. But Angie, through the thick and thin, one thing that I've really appreciated about you, working with you, being a friend of yours, is through it all, we worked it out. And I think there's a lot to learn from that for agency partners that are out there. Is, yeah, sometimes it feels like the world's crushing down on your shoulders. The relationship is not salvageable. You don't ever want to show your face again in the building. I mean, I felt that way, and it wasn't just with you, Angie. Like, I failed multiple times, and to be able to pick back up, learn from your mistakes, repair the relationship, know that it takes time. I know that you just mentioned I'm on your day one list. I know if you ever have a need in any organization where I can help, you're going to call, and I know if I ever need help, I can call you, and you're going to help. And I would have never thought that would have been the case years ago when we weren't talking for a year. But now, it's really sticking it out through the thick and the thin, the good and the bad. And that's a true agency partner, is the ones that are with you when it's bad, not just when it's good. All right, Angie, do you have any last minute tips for all the agencies that are out there that are starving? They're trying to get new business and no one's giving them the time of the day.
I would take the time to understand what it is they really need. Like, do your research, look at them on LinkedIn, understand, what they've worked on in the past, understand what their strengths are, right? Understand what you can do to help them, but not take over for them, but to help them and to become a partnership or a partner with them. And understanding that it is a partnership and that it is, hey, let's work together to get this taken care of. That's key. I do, well said. Even just on this, like, kind of going along with that, I remember when I went to the other plant when you and I were not talking for a while, and I was really nervous. I knew you were going to be.
Me too. I was so nervous.
All right, I need to hear this story, but
I can be very sassy and salty sometimes, and so I was like, get it together again. But I remember it was during COVID, and it was hard. It was so hard and so challenging. And you came into our startup meeting, and I remember you were holding something that I can't remember what you were drinking, and you were telling us about this drink, and I was like, oh, this is not going to work. It was, but that afternoon I had just had a day, and I was struggling so bad. And one of the temps had a question, and so I went into your on-site office in there, and you were there with the other ladies, and yep. I sat down, and we just had a conversation, an open and honest conversation. I even remember what I was wearing, but you were like, Angie, it's going to be okay. Like, I'm here to help. Things are going on, things are happening in the world and in our lives personally, and it's going to be okay. And it was just, that's when it completely changed for me, is, okay, you get it. Like, not just work related, but like, you understand me as a person, and you understand my struggles. You have struggles as well. And we're just doing the best we can. Yeah. And so we're just having that connection and that relationship. That's when everything turned over for me. So I just really appreciate everything, Stephen. Thank you.
That's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing. I think that's what I missed through the process, was that just genuine human connection. We're all people. It's not always about business. And I finally gave myself permission to do just that, and you were gracious enough to give me that opportunity, and it's been great ever since.
I mean, it goes back to, hey, people matter, and relationships, they take time, and you've got to genuinely build them, especially when you're working, and like, the goal is for a long-term strategic partnership.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that was a beautiful story. Thank you.
Oh yeah.
Thank you. Well, Angie, always a delight to have you. I know this is the second time on the podcast for you, and it won't be the last. So everybody subscribe, like, and comment. And I hope you guys took some nuggets here, because you just met with two real HR managers that told you exactly what they're looking for in a partnership. So on that note, we'll see you next Friday. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Hey, thanks for watching today's episode. This episode is sponsored by Staffing Referrals. We have relied on staffing referrals for years to turn satisfied associates into brand ambassadors, keeping quality talent coming in and lift retention. See what it can do for you at staffingreferrals.com or click on the link in the description. Thanks for watching.